Former Navy Rear Admiral Barry Black has served as a Senate Chaplain for 10 years, providing the daily invocation before each Senate session. So, Chaplain, how do you prepare and write your invocations?
I write my prayer, Simone, out of the overflow of my devotional life. I read the Bible every day, probably for at least an hour. I read the Bible to prepare sermons. I read the Bible for my personal spiritual growth. And out of the overflow of my devotional life, my prayers emerge. What I get devotionally, I connect to my pastoral interaction with our lawmakers, the members of their family, the members of their staffs, and the other people who make up the Senate side of Capitol Hill. So my prayers consist of a synthesis of devotions and pastoral outreach.
During the shutdown, you used strong language like save us from the madness, deliver us from hypocrisy, forgive them the blunders they have committed. Were you trying to make a political point when you said those things?
I don't think I was attempting to make a political point. I think I was trying to describe the environment that I found myself in. I am a pastor first and foremost. I'm not a politician. I am descriptive rather than prescriptive. So what I was describing was phenomena that I saw on both sides of the aisle. I think, for instance, I made a statement, remove the burdens of those who are the collateral damage of this federal shutdown. Most of my members were furloughed. I'm aware of the burdens that they have to bear. I made a plea for there not to be a delay in death benefits to the grieving families of our fallen warriors. I did that primarily because I have made scores of death notifications to next of kin as a Navy chaplain for 27 years, and I appreciate the incomprehensible nature of their grief. So I was praying out of pastoral concern rather than trying to make a political point.
What was the response you received from lawmakers?
I think someone who may have been upset about some of my prayers would probably be a little reluctant to come to me and say so. So most of the feedback that I received from both sides of the aisle, the feedback was very, very positive. But you have to understand, I see these lawmakers on a regular basis. We participate in a weekly prayer breakfast. We participate in a weekly Bible study. So they know me. They've also been listening to me pray for over 10 years. I mean, 99% of the prayers that have been offered at the convening of the Senate for the last decade have been offered by me. So they know that when I go off script, when I go rogue, they know this must be very important. If you cry wolf in every prayer, when it comes time to say something that is pertinent and urgent, no one's going to believe you. So the pointed nature of my prayers, as I would describe them, rather than the scolding nature of my prayers, I think reflect the fact that most of my prayers are fairly placid. It is only when I am convinced that something urgent needs to be said. And remember, I'm not directing this to the lawmakers, I'm directing it to the sovereign God of the universe. I think they take that very seriously because the scolding aspect is not the normal quality of my praying.
What is your response to people who make the argument that there is a separation of church and state?
The Supreme Court in Marsh v. Chambers, 1983, upheld the constitutionality of legislative prayer. So I think it's pretty clear that our framers intended that there be a spiritual dimension to government, and that the separation of church and state was referring to the establishment of a religion, of having an official state religion or governmental religion.
What is your favorite part about being chaplain?
My favorite part about being the 62nd chaplain of the United States Senate is that it provides me with a front row seat to human history. There's more written about the legislative branch of government in our Constitution than any other branch. And I have the privilege of having a front row seat to the legislative process. I think that most people are not so much afraid of dying as they are of never having truly lived. And anyone who has a front row seat to human history can shuffle off this mortal coil absolutely certain that he or she has truly lived.